setting your producer.
You sit right here.
Okay, now I'll sit when you sit.
You push.
Okay, now you sit and I'll stand.
But
okay,
over that way.
Okay, now I'll stand.
God, you're always so close.
Look, your producer's told you several times.
There's a line in this couch.
You tell me I can't cross this line. I just did.
What? From 1320K fan, it's Kyle Gunther. It's good to have you back.
Hi.
Are you doing okay?
I'm doing really, really great. Yeah, no, I hurt myself. I fell off a fence.
Handshake's over.
I was trying to enter a place I shouldn't enter. I was trespassing, and I fell over this fence. I hurt my leg.
Are you all right?
No, my arm hurts. I had one of the fence posts go right into my hamstring, and it kind of feels like I got a sore buttock now. I got a big bruise on my buttock.
That's too bad. Okay.
Some of your producers were asking about it.
I only got a massage yesterday on a day off, and it made me feel maybe you should try that.
Yeah, how big was he?
Okay.
Anyway, that's a joke there, Dave.
Number of things to talk about. Let's start with college football. Wow, it's just been a rat race, and now we're getting into the signing day is coming up. Are you concerned at all that the Utes seem to have lost a couple of recruits? Could some of this be related to not having an OC and a DC on staff now? No,
I think what's more concerning is that Utah lost a great recruiter in Kalani Sitake. Utah's not losing recruits because they don't have a coordinator in place. A lot of fans want to bring that up and understand most fans are adults with perspective on life. High school recruits don't have a lot of perspective. They don't necessarily care about the scheme or the coordinator. They care about the playing time and the quality and quantity of buxom women on campus. Whoa. And so as long as Utah can still offer a vivacious group of women there to offer to the recruits, I mean, if that's what you're into.
So you're speaking to the quality of the co-eds at the University of Utah.
I was recruited as a football player, and I couldn't have cared less what scheme I played for. I wanted to know.
But didn't you take a visit to Arizona State?
Well, yes.
Supposedly that's incredible for. I mean, it's harvest down there.
Well, obviously there's a lot of great scenery there, but Utah's lost a couple of recruits to Oregon State. We should say some commits because Kalani Sitake is a hell of a recruiter, and he can relate
to these kids. Not because the women
are
better.
I would imagine the women are not better in Corvallis.
That's what
and with all due respect to the women of Oregon, they're a hairy and polite bunch, and I respect them. No, it's true. A lot of women.
Wow.
I'm into it. A lot of women in Oregon, particularly, they don't shave their underarms.
Where are you getting your data from?
My dad played at Oregon in Eugene, and so I know about Corvallis, Oregon. The women are hairier.
I apologize to anybody
and most of them
can't
read good.
All right, so the bottom line is maybe it's a little hyperbole, this whole losing recruit. And I think Kyle Whittingham had made the remark a week or two back that it's not always the recruit that is leaving us. Maybe it's, the other way around. And doesn't that sound like the guy who's trying to tell all of his friends it was a mutual breakup? Okay. We broke up with each other. Yeah. I got broken up with a lot in my single days, Dave, and none of them were mutual. I wanted to stay together at every single point, and I think the same thing happens with recruiting, but there's a lot of gray areas here because you're talking about verbal commitments to schools. Nobody's signed on the dotted line until February 4th, so technically these schools are still recruiting other athletes. If you're Utah, too, don't act like you stopped recruiting other linebackers because you got a couple of linebackers committed, too. So there's a lot of talking out of both sides of your mouths here, but no, I don't think Kalani Sitake's maliciously pilfering any recruits. I think recruits had already signed up to play for Sitake and are continuing to try to follow him because he's an amazing guy. Not that Whittingham isn't, but Kalani Sitake's a wonderful coach, and guys relate to him very well. But don't you think at some point, I mean, obviously Kyle's going to make some hires eventually, Kyle Whittingham. You don't think it's crucial at all to get that done before signing day? It's crucial that Kyle Whittingham not hire any more offensive coordinators. Hell, hire one this week or wait till after signing day. It doesn't matter now. The hay's in the barn at Utah. You've got 9 offensive coordinators going the last 8 years. Or maybe it's 8 and 7. It's a ludicrous number. There's not a head coach in the country that's been allowed to make this many hirings on the offensive side of the ball. So you're not going to fix this solution by going out and bringing in Lane Kiffin. I mean, I know he just took a gig in the NFL here, but Utah's going to hire from within, offensively and defensively. Now, defensively, next year, your coordinator at Utah, I should say your play caller defensively, will be Kyle Whittingham. Technically, Morgan Scalley might be your defensive coordinator. Kind of work him in and take him under his wing kind of thing. Offensively, Kyle Whittingham has run out of names of coaches to call. He's hired all of his friends. Give it back to Erickson.
In my opinion, you should give the offensive coordinator job to Aaron Roderick.
Okay.
Then you should give the job to Dennis Erickson or Jim Harding, but Dennis Erickson doesn't want the job. And I say that, I'm not friends with Dennis Erickson, but
maybe he'd mentor A-Rod if A-Rod needs. I don't think A-Rod needs.
A-Rod doesn't need any mentoring here.
Yeah.
What Dennis Erickson though is a guy he's already won national championships, and he came to Utah to take some of the burden off him and not be a head coach anymore, just be a coordinator now. But they're paying him the same amount of money to be a position coach. He's not hating the lack of responsibility. Dennis Erickson has some interests outside of football. I think like boating and fishing and, I don't know, just lounging.
It is a nice state for that kind of thing.
What are your hobbies outside of being on television?
I like to ski.
You know, a big ups to you. In an unrelated note, I got to meet one of your family members. Your
my son,
your
Andrew.
Young son, Andrew, the very handsome Andrew Fox. And man, what an accomplishment it must be for Andrew to get to tell people that his dad is Dave Fox. And
you know what's the real accomplishment? I get to tell people that my son is in law school at the University of Utah.
And look, that's impressive too, but I tell you, walking into that Jazz game the other night and seeing everyone turn, and when we were reacting to each other to be able to hear your son brag publicly that his dad was Dave Fox. Ooh, man.
I know you're a lover and not a fighter.
Correct.
And today the penalties, if you will, came out on the whole BYU Memphis State thing, except we don't know what the BYU penalties are because they said they're going to keep that in-house. But Memphis talked about some game suspensions, some practice suspensions. Is that really a penalty, by the way?
No, no, that's the opposite of a penalty.
I was going to say, isn't that more a reward?
12 players at Memphis are going to get in trouble. They may not get suspended. But BYU, and you're right, they're not going to announce it because BYU is a private school. In my opinion, no suspensions are necessary for any BYU football players. I've reviewed the tape. I watched the game live. BYU did not start that brawl. Now, I don't like that BYU was involved in a melee. Yeah, that's gross to have on TV. But BYU did not start it. It's very clear that Tijon Karoma was shoved. He landed, when he got shoved, into a Memphis player. That Memphis player turned around and said, well, I'm not going to get shoved. So he punched Tijon Karoma. A brawl started, and unfortunately, BYU had to get involved in it. For one, I don't think there's any need for a suspension. In fact, the most ludicrous angle to this story is that a conference call was set up.
I heard about this, where they all apologize.
BYU,
you apologize to your brother right now.
You had team captains and coaches apologizing to each other on a conference call. Can you think of a less sincere interaction?
I know. You will call him and apologize.
I feel really bad, because I trained for 2 months to kill you on the football field, and then when we left the field, I shouldn't have hit you, and I'm sorry. And when I hit you, I know that it hurt you, and I had to be on TV throwing punches, and there's no need to apologize here.
You're a good actor.
No, I cry a lot, Dave. I was really crying. That was real emotions, Dave. The issue is that these men are trained to hurt each other at all times, and I think for BYU, the actual melee itself helped their reputation. It showed the nation that they are going to get their teammates back and they are going to defend each other. I think BYU needs to show a bit more of an edge.
We'll go along with that. Lastly, and I was on your website today, and one of the things that you mentioned, actually, was your Facebook page. And this is an interesting point. You were talking about how the Jazz have the same record now as they did a year ago at this time, and yet there's a whole different feel to this team. What was the reaction of some of your listeners, and what do you make of it?
Well, and that's been our guy Ben Anderson's take for quite a while now, and I know he wrote about this in his latest column, but and Ben is, of course, the guy we do the show with every day. But
I'm sorry.
Ben Anderson, the very talented Mr. Ben, they call him. But Ben pointed out, and I've been stealing it all week, that, the Jazz's record is the same, but their average age on their roster is about 5 years younger. Remember, a year ago, Marvin Williams and Richard Jefferson had to be involved in the starting lineup. Otherwise, the Jazz wouldn't have been above water now. Now you're talking about a team without Rodney Hood, without Alec Burks, who's essentially just now discovered Rudy Gobert. There's a lot of reason to be optimistic if you're a Jazz fan, and especially for Quinn Snyder to be able to build this much momentum. And we're talking about a team that right now is not even close to 500, so I know momentum is sort of a tricky word to be using here, but the Jazz have a long and difficult rebuilding process coming through here, and Quinn Snyder's gotten off to a nice start.
You're amazing.
I appreciate that.
You're hurt.
You're also
injured.
Amazing.
You impaled your thigh with a fence today, and yet here he's playing hurt. He made it in, and it's good to
The fence post rammed right into my upper thigh and lower buttock area. It was I was jumping off a trash can, and the trash can kind of moved.
Why?
But I was driving down the street, and I had a dog stare at me in a way that I didn't like. And as you know, I'm dealing with a severe case
fighting
of
dogs.
Dog racism right now. I don't like dogs, and when they look at me,
I think this
I find
has come
them
to
and I
an
fight
end.
Your producers are saying we're done, Dave.
Kyle Gunther, you hear him every single day on 1320 K-Fan, the sports league. Why do we do this?
I wore an ugly shirt to try to match you,
You can also
Dave.
follow him on Twitter at Gunther K-Fan.
Almighty.
And we're going to be back with Play of the Day coming up right after this.
The play of the day was you touching my thigh right there, Dave. Oh, man, what a great work.
I'm going to relax now.
Well, thanks for having me on your couch, Dave. Cameras are off now, so you can go back to complimenting me like when you normally do when the cameras are off.
Wow.
Talking about how buff I am. I wore an ugly shirt. Like I said, my grandma got it for me. It was a rugby shirt. It was on discount. I wore it for Christmas, and I'm going to wear it now. Oh, don't take your mic off.